Jake Morrison stood at the big window of the spaceship and watched the alien ship come closer. His heart was beating fast, but he tried to stay calm. This was the day humans had been waiting for since they first looked up at the stars. Today they would meet beings from another world. The research ship Endeavour floated quietly in space near the edge of the solar system. Jake touched the long scar on his face that ran from his temple to his jaw. He got it when he was young and fell while climbing rocks. The scar had always made him feel different, but now he forgot about it as he watched history happen. Dr. Lisa Grant walked up next to him. She carried a tablet computer that showed information about the aliens they were about to meet. Lisa was the best scientist on Earth when it came to studying life forms. She had traveled across the galaxy to be here for this moment. "Are you nervous?" Lisa asked Jake as she looked out the window too. Jake shrugged his shoulders. "Just curious about what they will think of us." The alien ship was beautiful. It had smooth curves and seemed to glow with its own light. It was much bigger than their human ship and looked like it was made from materials that did not exist on Earth. As it came closer, Jake could see strange symbols on its surface that seemed to move and change. Commander Ryan. Blake joined them at the window. He was a military man who had seen many battles on Earth. His job was to make sure the meeting went well and that Earth stayed safe. Blake had scars on his hands from fighting, and his face showed that he had lived through hard times. "The aliens call themselves the Keth Mori," Blake said as he read from his own tablet. "They have been watching us for a long time. They say they are here to welcome us to the galactic community." Jake felt excited and scared at the same time. Humans had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they would find out that they were not. But what would that mean for Earth and all the people living there? The alien ship connected to their ship with a tube of light. Jake had never seen anything like it. The light seemed solid but also moved like water. Through this tube, the aliens would come aboard their ship for the first meeting between humans and another intelligent species. The first alien to come through was tall and thin. Its skin looked like crystal and seemed to catch the light from their ship and throw it back in beautiful colors. When it moved, the light danced across its body in ways that made Jake think of rainbows. "I am Zeftar," the alien said through a device that turned its words into English. "I speak for my people. We welcome you humans to the galaxy." Jake stepped forward with Lisa and Blake. This was the moment they had practiced for months. "We are honored to meet you," Jake said. "I am Jake Morrison. This is Dr. Lisa Grant and Commander Blake. We represent the people of Earth." Zeftar looked at each of them with large eyes that had many colors in them. Jake noticed that the alien seemed to be studying them very carefully. It was like Zeftar was looking for something specific, but Jake did not know what. "Your species has grown very fast," Zeftar said. "In a short time you have gone from simple tools to space travel. This is unusual in the galaxy." Over the next few days, the humans and aliens shared information about their worlds. The aliens showed them pictures of other planets and other species that lived among the stars. Jake learned that there were hundreds of different kinds of intelligent life in the galaxy, and that Earth was just one small world among many. But Jake began to notice something strange. Whenever the aliens saw a human with scars, they would stop and stare. At first, Jake thought maybe aliens did not get scars like humans did. But then he saw that Zeftar would look at the scars with what seemed like fear or worry. The strangest moment came when Lisa was showing Zeftar how human bodies worked. She had rolled up her sleeve to show a small scar on her arm from when doctors had to operate on her when she was a child. The scar was barely visible, but when Zeftar saw it, he froze completely. "Where did you get this mark?" Zeftar asked. His voice sounded different now, like he was afraid or excited. Lisa looked down at her arm. "Oh, that. I had to have surgery when I was 12 years old." "Why do you ask?" Instead of answering, Zeftar took out a small device. He pointed it at Lisa's scar, and suddenly a picture appeared in the air made of light. The picture showed a symbol that was complex and beautiful. It had flowing lines that seemed to move and dance, but what made Jake's heart race was that the symbol looked almost exactly like Lisa's scar. "This is impossible," Zeftar whispered. "The patterns match." Jake moved closer. "Match what?" The alien looked up at Jake and then at Blake. His crystal skin seemed to be changing colors faster now. "Ancient war markings, from a war that ended 3 million years ago." Blake stepped forward. "I think there might be a mistake. Our planet is only a few billion years old. Complex life like us has only existed for a much shorter time. But Zeftar was already using his device to scan all three humans. Every scar on their bodies made the device make soft musical sounds. Jake's face scar glowed faintly in the light from the device. Blake's battle scars from Earth's wars all responded to the scan. "I must contact my leaders immediately," Zeftar said. His voice was shaking. "This changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history." The other aliens who had come with Zeftar began to gather around. They all looked shocked and worried. They spoke to each other in their own language very quickly. Jake could not understand the words, but he could hear the fear and excitement in their voices. "What was this war you mentioned?" Lisa asked. "What does this mean for us?" Zeftar stopped at the door that led back to his ship. The Void War was fought against an enemy so terrible that all records of it were locked away. The warriors who fought in that war disappeared from history. We thought they were all dead. But what does that have to do with us? Jake asked. "Your scars," Zeftar said quietly. "They match the genetic markers of those ancient warriors. If this is true, then you are not what you appear to be." The door closed behind the aliens and Jake was left standing with Lisa and Blake in the quiet of their ship. They looked at each other with questions that had no answers. Lisa stared down at her small scar with new eyes. "Jake," she said slowly, "what if we are not who we think we are?" 3 weeks after the aliens left, Jake Morrison found himself on the biggest space station he had ever seen. The station was so large that it had its own weather, and Jake could see clouds forming inside the huge chambers. It floated near the center of the galaxy where the oldest and wisest species lived. Lisa Grant walked beside him carrying her tablet and looking around with wide eyes. The walls of the station seemed to be alive and they glowed with soft light that changed colors as they passed. Commander Blake stayed close to both of them. He kept his hand near his weapon even though they had been told this was a place of peace. "I have never seen anything like this," Lisa whispered, as they walked through a corridor that seemed to stretch on forever. "The technology here is beyond anything we could imagine." They were being led by a creature that looked like it was made of living starlight. It had the shape of a person, but its body was made of tiny points of light that moved and sparkled. This was Elder Vexhan, one of the leaders of the Heritage Council. "Your arrival has caused great concern among our people," Vexhan said as they walked. Its voice sounded like music played on instruments made of light. "For 3 million years we have kept secrets that we thought were safely buried in the past." Jake touched his face scar without thinking about it. Since meeting Zeftar, the scar had been tingling in a strange way. Sometimes it felt warm and sometimes it seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Lisa and Blake had reported similar feelings with their own scars. They entered a chamber so vast that Jake could not see the other side. The ceiling was like looking into deep space with stars and galaxies spinning slowly above them. In the center of the chamber was a circle of beings unlike anything the humans had ever imagined. One looked like a tree that could think and move. Another seemed to be made of living crystal like Zeftar, but much older and more complex. There was a being that appeared to be made of flowing water, and another that looked like a small sun with arms and legs. "Welcome, humans," Vexhan said as they approached the circle. "You stand before the Heritage Council. We are the keepers of galactic history and the guardians of ancient knowledge." Jake felt small standing in front of these ancient beings. Each one looked like it had lived for thousands of years and seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. But he also felt something else. His scar was getting warmer and he could sense that Lisa and Blake were feeling the same thing. "Why have you brought us here?" Blake asked in his military voice. The tree creature spoke with a voice like wind through leaves. "Because your existence threatens everything we thought we knew about the past. The scars you carry should not exist on your species." Suddenly the air above them filled with pictures made of light. Jake saw battles between creatures in space, planets being destroyed, and warriors fighting against things that hurt his eyes to look at. The images moved and changed, showing a war that covered the entire galaxy. "This is the Void War," Vexhan explained. "It was not just a fight between different species. It was a battle for the very nature of reality itself. An enemy came from spaces between dimensions. They were beings of pure destruction that wanted to destroy all existence." Lisa looked up at the images with her scientist mind working fast. "What does this have to do with us?" "Your ancestors fought in this war," the crystal being said. "Not humans as you are now, but the Terran warrior caste. They were the greatest fighters the galaxy had ever seen." New images appeared showing beings that looked like humans, but bigger and stronger. They wore armor that seemed to be made of light and energy. They carried weapons that could cut through space itself. But what made Jake's heart race was that they looked exactly like humans, just more powerful. Each scar they received in battle was not just a wound that healed. Vexhan continued. It was a victory that was written into their very DNA. The genetic markers were designed to be passed down through generations, so their sacrifice would never be forgotten. Lisa was working on her tablet as fast as she could. That is impossible. We know where humans came from. We evolved on Earth from earlier life forms, did you? The water creature asked with a voice like rain. Or were you placed there with your memories changed and your true nature hidden until the galaxy was safe enough for your return? The meaning of the words hit Jake like a physical blow. You are saying we were put on Earth on purpose? Not as punishment, Vexhan said gently. As protection. The war ended at a terrible cost. The void entities were not destroyed. They were pushed into spaces between realities. But the effort required the sacrifice of almost all the warrior races, including your ancestors. More images showed Earth, but not the Earth that Jake knew. This Earth was carefully designed and built. It showed human DNA being changed and modified before being placed on the planet. It showed the warrior traits being hidden but not removed. The scars are genetic memories, Zeftar said as he appeared in the circle. Each mark that appears on human skin matches victories won by your ancestors. They are proof of battles fought to protect all life in the galaxy. Blake looked down at his scarred hands. So every time we get hurt and heal, we are remembering ancient battles? You are accessing a database of victories against impossible odds, the tree creature replied. Your species' ability to survive, your refusal to give up, your talent for thriving in hostile places. These are not random evolutionary traits. They are the inheritance of the galaxy's greatest warriors. Lisa was running calculations on her tablet, and her face showed amazement. The genetic markers are not just in our scars. They are in our entire genetic code. Every human carries them. Every human, Vexhan confirmed, is a descendant of heroes. The chamber became quiet as the humans understood what they were being told. Jake felt like his whole understanding of himself and his species had just been turned upside down. Finally, he found his voice. Why tell us this now? Why reveal the truth after 3 million years? The Elder's starlight form seemed to dim and the other council members looked worried. Because the barriers that keep the void entities trapped are getting weaker. After 3 million years, the ancient locks are beginning to fail. And you need warriors again, Blake said grimly, understanding the situation. The galaxy needs its defenders to remember who they truly are, Vexhan replied. Jake looked around the circle of ancient beings and realized that they were all afraid. These creatures had lived for thousands of years and had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but they were scared of what was coming. What happens if we refuse? Lisa asked. What if humans choose to stay as we are? The crystal being's light grew dim. Then the galaxy falls to entropy and chaos. The void entities will not stop with one dimension. They will spread across all realities until nothing exists except emptiness. But we are just humans, Jake said. We have no idea how to fight interdimensional beings. You do know, Zeftar said quietly. The knowledge is locked in your genetic code. Every scar is a key that opens memories of how to fight these enemies. Your ancestors designed you to be stronger and smarter than they were. The council members began to fade from view as the meeting came to an end, but Vexhan remained. Return to your people, the elder said. Tell them who they truly are. Help them remember. The seals will not hold much longer, and when they break, the galaxy will need every warrior it can find. As Jake walked back through the station, with Lisa and Blake, he felt the weight of impossible responsibility on his shoulders. How do you tell an entire species that everything they thought they knew about themselves was wrong? How do you prepare a world for a war against enemies that existed outside of reality itself? But as his scar pulsed with warmth, he began to understand that maybe humans were more ready for this than anyone realized. Jake Morrison stood in front of a room full of people at the Global Science Institute. Scientists, military leaders, and government officials from around the world had come to hear what he learned from the aliens. Behind him, big screens showed pictures and data that proved everything he was about to tell them. His face scar felt more noticeable under the bright lights, but Jake had learned to see it differently now. It was not just a mark from an old accident. It was proof that he carried the genes of ancient warriors who had saved the galaxy. The evidence cannot be argued with, Jake told the crowd. Humanity is not a young species just starting to explore space. We are the children of warriors who fought the greatest war in galactic history. Dr. Lisa Grant took his place at the speaking platform. Her small surgery scar was visible on her arm as she moved her hands to explain the science behind their discovery. Our unusual ability to heal quickly, our resistance to infection, our talent for surviving trauma that would kill most other species, Lisa said. These are not accidents of evolution. They were designed features built into our DNA. In the audience, Captain Alex Rodriguez touched the burn scar on his neck without thinking about it. He got the scar during a rescue mission when he was younger. Since learning about the Void War, the scar had been tingling at strange times like it was responding to signals he could not hear. What does this mean for humanity's future? Asked Dr. Patricia Wells, who was the director of the institute. Commander Blake stood up to answer. It means we have a choice. We can continue as we are, or we can accept our heritage and prepare for what is coming. The news spread across Earth faster than anyone expected. Every television station, internet site, and newspaper carried the story. Humanity was not what they thought they were. They were the descendants of galactic heroes. Strange things began happening around the world. People who had lived with scars for years started reporting changes. The marks became more clear and sometimes glowed faintly in certain lights. More importantly, those with many scars began having flashes of memory that were not their own. Marine Sergeant Kevin Torres had scars on both arms from his time in combat. During a training exercise, he found himself doing fighting moves that he had never learned. His body seemed to know how to fight enemies that did not exist on Earth. It feels like someone else's hands are guiding mine, he told the research team that was studying these changes. I know how to fight things that I have never seen. Similar reports came from everywhere. Maria Santos worked construction in Detroit and had many scars from years of dangerous work. She began drawing symbols that matched ancient battle formations from the Terran warrior archives. Danny Clark was a mountain climber from Nepal whose scars came from falls and accidents. He started speaking pieces of a language that was older than any known human civilization. The alien community watched these developments with hope and worry. Seftar set up a research station on Earth's moon to monitor how humans were changing. The genetic locks are opening, he reported to the Heritage Council, but slowly and carefully. The original designers built in protections to prevent mental damage from sudden memory integration. Not all humans were happy about learning their true nature. Protests happened in major cities around the world. Some groups rejected their alien heritage and demanded that Earth cut all contact with the galactic community. Others formed military organizations to prepare for the return of the void entities. But the most important discovery came from an unexpected place. Dr. Stephen King was a trauma surgeon in Chicago who had been studying how wounds healed in patients. Since the revelation about human heritage, I have been watching wound healing patterns in patients since we learned the truth, he announced at a medical conference, and I have found something remarkable. When humans are injured while consciously accepting their warrior heritage, their scars form in patterns that match specific battle formations. From the ancient archives, he showed before and after pictures of patients who had surgery after learning their true nature. The scars formed exact geometric patterns. Each one matched tactical formations that were used against void entities millions of years ago. We are not just remembering how to fight, Dr. King concluded. We are being actively prepared for a specific type of warfare. As Earth entered its second year of awakening, the first signs of the returning threat began to appear. Deep space monitoring stations detected strange readings at the edge of known space. There were distortions in reality itself that matched descriptions of void entity approaches. Commander Blake now headed Earth's newly formed Heritage Defense Initiative. He stood before a joint assembly of human and alien representatives to give his report. The question is not whether we are ready, he said. His own scars seemed to pulse with inner light as he spoke. The question is whether we remember enough to win. The changes in humans were accelerating. Those with the most scars were becoming something beyond normal human capabilities. Maria Santos found that her industrial scars had formed into complex patterns that let her manipulate matter at the molecular level. She could repair things that the void had broken, including reality itself. I can fix things the void destroys, she explained to the research team. Her hands glowed with soft energy as she repaired a piece of alien technology that had been damaged by proximity to a minor dimensional breach. Not just physical things, reality itself. Kevin Torres discovered he could coordinate with other scarred humans across vast distances. His mind could link to a network of warrior consciousness that spanned the globe. Danny Clark found that his climbing scars allowed him to navigate impossible terrain, including surfaces that existed in folded space. The alien community was divided in their reactions. Some species remembered ancient legends of Terran warriors and began requesting human protection for their worlds. Others were frightened by humanity's rapid transformation and called for containment protocols. "They are becoming something beyond what they were," said Council Member Thekran, who was made of living crystal and had witnessed the original Void War. "The scars are not just unlocking memories, they are evolving human capabilities in real time." Zeftar had spent months studying human development and had a different view. They are not evolving. They are remembering evolution that was planned 3 million years ago. The original Terran warriors knew that the Void would return stronger, so they designed their descendants to be stronger as well. The truth of his words became clear when the first major breach opened near an inhabited star system. Reality itself was under attack. The void entities that emerged were larger and more complex than anything in the ancient records. Their forms shifted between dimensions in ways that made them nearly impossible to target. Earth's first interstellar warship, the Defiance, arrived at the breach site with a crew that was entirely human. Admiral Susan Carter commanded. The ship and every person aboard carried scars that had awakened to their true purpose. Conventional. "Weapons are not working," reported Weapons Officer Tony Adams with frustration in his voice. "Energy disperses before it reaches the entities." Admiral Carter felt the network of scars across her arms begin to burn with purpose. Around the bridge, every human crew member was experiencing the same sensation. Then, "We do not use conventional weapons," she said. She raised her right hand, revealing an intricate pattern of scars that had formed during her awakening. The pattern began to glow, and suddenly the bridge was filled with energy that the ship's sensors could not identify. "All human personnel, focus on your scars," she commanded. "Across the ship's communications. Remember who we are. Remember what we were built to fight." When the ship opened fire on the void entities, the energy that emerged was not just destructive. It was restorative. Where the beams touched the wounds in reality, space began to heal itself. For the first time in 3 million years, the void entities encountered resistance they could not simply overwhelm. Several of the smaller entities dissolved back into their dimensional spaces, while the larger ones stopped their advance. The victory was only temporary. As the immediate threat retreated, larger tiers began opening across the galaxy. The void entities were testing the strength of their ancient enemies' descendants. Soon the real war would begin, and humanity would need to remember not just how to fight, but how to win against impossible odds. The first major breach happened in a part of space so far away that few species had ever been there. The reports seemed impossible. Space itself was coming apart and creating holes in reality through which something vast and hungry looked into the material universe. Admiral Susan Carter stood in the command center of the warship Defiance. It was humanity's first vessel designed with recovered Terran warrior technology. The bridge hummed with energy patterns that seemed to match the scars of every human aboard. "Breach confirmed in Sector 77 Alpha," reported Navigation Officer Luis Hernandez. His voice stayed steady even though what they were facing was beyond imagination. "The distortion is expanding at a rate of 3 light years per day." On the main display, the breach looked like a wound in space itself. The edges crackled with energy that hurt to look at directly. Through the gap, shadows moved. They were shapes that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. "Admiral," Communications Officer Karen Mitchell announced, "we are receiving a priority transmission from the Heritage Council." Elder Vexhan appeared on the secondary display. His starlight form was more agitated than Jake Morrison had ever seen it. "Admiral Carter, the situation is worse than our predictions indicated. The void entities are not simply returning. They are bringing reinforcements." Jake now served as the fleet's expert on alien archaeology. He felt his facial scar burn as he studied the sensor readings. "Reinforcements? From where?" "From the spaces between realities." Zeftar's voice joined the conversation as his image appeared next to Vexhan's. "During their banishment, they have been recruiting, converting other dimensional beings to their cause." The meaning was staggering. The original Void War had nearly destroyed galactic civilization when fought against a single species of entropy beings. Now they faced an alliance of reality destroyers from multiple dimensions. What are our options? Admiral Carter asked, though the set of her jaw suggested she already knew the answer. There are no options, Vexen replied gravely. There is only the path forward. Humanity must fully awaken to its warrior heritage or the galaxy falls. Across Earth and the growing network of human colonies, the awakening process accelerated dramatically. Dr. Lisa Grant now led the Global Heritage Integration Project and reported unprecedented changes in the human population. SCAR. Formation rates have increased by 400%, she announced during an emergency briefing, and not from injuries. The scars are appearing spontaneously as genetic memories activate. In military bases around the world, soldiers found themselves capable of feats that defied conventional understanding. Sergeant Danny Martinez discovered he could sense void entity influence across impossible distances. His combat scars acted as early warning systems. Pilot Rebecca Stone found that her crash scars allowed her to navigate space in ways that confused even veteran alien navigators. But the most dramatic changes occurred in humans with the most extensive scarring. Maria Santos, the construction worker from Detroit, had become something beyond ordinary human capabilities. Her industrial scars had formed into complex patterns that allowed her to manipulate matter at the molecular level. I can fix things the void breaks, she explained to the research team. Her hands glowed with soft energy as she repaired a piece of alien technology that had been damaged by proximity to a minor breach. Not just physical things, reality itself. Similar transformations were occurring worldwide. Kevin Torres found he could coordinate with other scarred humans across vast distances, his mind linked to a network of warrior consciousness that spanned the globe. Danny Clark discovered that his climbing scars allowed him to navigate impossible terrain, including surfaces that existed in folded space. The alien community watched these developments with a mixture of awe and concern. Some species, remembering ancient legends of Terran warriors, began requesting human protection for their worlds. Others, frightened by humanity's rapid transformation, called for containment protocols. They are becoming something beyond what they were, observed Council Member Thek Ran. He was a being of living crystal who had witnessed the original Void War. The scars are not just unlocking memories. They are evolving human capabilities in real time. Zeftar, who had spent months studying human development, had a different perspective. They are not evolving. They are remembering evolution that was planned 3 million years ago. The original Terran warriors knew that the Void would return stronger, so they designed their descendants to be stronger as well. The truth of his words became apparent when the second breach opened dangerously close to an inhabited system. The Defiance and its escort fleet arrived to find reality itself under assault. The void entities that emerged were larger and more complex than anything in the ancient records. Their forms shifted between dimensions in ways that made them nearly impossible to target. Conventional weapons are ineffective, reported Weapons Officer Tony Adams. Frustration was clear in his voice. Energy disperses before it reaches them. Admiral Carter felt the network of scars across her arms begin to burn with purpose. Around the bridge, every human crew member was experiencing the same sensation. Then, "We do not use conventional weapons," she said. Raised her right hand, revealing an intricate pattern of scars that had formed during her awakening. The pattern began to glow, and suddenly the bridge was filled with energy that the ship's sensors could not classify. "All human personnel focus on your scars," she commanded across the fleet communications. "Remember who we are. Remember what we were built to fight." Across the human fleet, hundreds of scarred warriors opened themselves to memories that spanned eons. The ships themselves began to change, responding to human will in ways their alien designers had never imagined. Weapons that had been purely technological became extensions of human determination. When the fleet opened fire on the void entities, the energy that emerged was not just destructive, it was restorative. Where the beams touched the wounds in reality, space began to heal itself. For the first time in 3 million years, the void entities encountered resistance they could not simply overwhelm. Several of the smaller entities dissolved back into their dimensional spaces while the larger ones hesitated. Their advance ground to a halt, but the victory was temporary. As the immediate threat retreated, larger tiers began opening across the galaxy. The void entities were probing and testing the strength of their ancient enemies' descendants. Admiral Carter looked at the tactical display showing breach points scattered across dozens of systems. How many ships do we have with full human crews? 47 operational with another 30 in construction, replied her aide. She studied the display, calculating odds that seemed impossible. And how many breach points are we tracking? 136 confirmed, with more appearing hourly. The mathematics were brutal. Even with their awakened abilities, humanity could not be everywhere at once. They needed a different strategy. Jake Morrison, studying the pattern of breaches, suddenly understood. They are not random attacks. Look at the positioning. They are forming a geometric pattern across the galaxy. Admiral Carter turned to him. What kind of pattern? A summoning circle, Jake replied. His facial scar burned as ancient knowledge surfaced. They are trying to open a permanent gateway. If they succeed, the entire void dimension pours into our reality, Admiral Carter finished. We would not be fighting individual entities anymore. We would be fighting the concept of entropy itself. The final phase of the war was about to begin, and humanity would need to remember not just how to fight, but how to win against impossible odds. The galaxy's fate hung in the balance, and only the descendants of ancient warriors stood between reality and complete destruction. The discovery that the void entities were creating a galaxy-spanning summoning circle changed everything. Humanity had weeks, perhaps days, before the final gateway opened, and their dimension became a doorway for unlimited entropy. Forces in the command center aboard the TU, Defiance now serving as flagship for the combined human-alien defense fleet. The greatest minds of multiple species worked frantically to find a solution, but it was Maria Santos, the construction worker turned matter restoration specialist, who provided the answer. You are thinking about this wrong, she said. Her scarred hands traced patterns in the air that left glowing trails. You cannot stop a summoning circle by attacking its parts. You have to complete it with the wrong destination. Dr. Lisa Grant looked up from her calculations. What do you mean? The circle is designed to open a gateway to the void dimension, Maria explained. But if we can add the right modifications to the pattern, we can redirect it somewhere else. Jake Morrison's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Send the void entities somewhere they cannot escape from. Exactly. But it would require precise modifications to every breach point at the same time, and someone would have to serve as the focusing point for the redirection. Admiral Carter studied the tactical display showing the vast geometric pattern of breaches. The scale was staggering. Modifications would need to be made across thousands of light years in perfect timing. How many humans would we need? She asked. Zeftar, who had been analyzing the proposal, answered grimly. All of them. Every scarred human in the galaxy acting as a single network. And even then, the focusing individual would have to channel forces that would... He did not finish the sentence, but everyone understood. The focusing person would not survive the process. As word of the plan spread across human space, the response was swift and unified. From Earth to the newest colonies, humans with scars of every size and origin prepared to link their consciousness to the growing network. The pattern was intricate beyond imagination. Each person's role was determined by the specific nature of their scarring and the memories those scars contained. Kevin Torres found himself coordinating ground operations on 17 worlds at the same time. His combat scars burned with purpose as he guided teams of humans into position at breach sites. Rebecca Stone piloted impossible missions through folded space. Her crash scars allowed her to navigate routes that existed in multiple dimensions at once. But the most crucial role fell to someone unexpected. Danny Clark, the mountain climber whose scars had awakened ancient linguistic abilities, discovered that his particular pattern of scarring matched the genetic signature needed to serve as the network's focal point. I do not understand, he said during the final briefing. I am not a warrior or a scientist. I just climb mountains. Elder Vexhan's starlight form seemed to pulse with emotion. The original designers of your species understood something profound. Sometimes the greatest battles are won not by the strongest warriors, but by those who know how to reach heights others cannot imagine. Danny looked down at his hands marked with scars from decades of climbing the world's most dangerous peaks. Each mark represented a moment where he had refused to give up and had found a way to continue when the path seemed impossible. What exactly will I need to do? Jake Morrison placed a hand on Danny's shoulder. Climb higher than anyone has ever climbed before. Guide us all to a summit that exists in pure thought. The final battle began not with explosions, or energy weapons, but with the quiet focus of millions of humans closing their eyes and opening their minds to memories that spanned eons. Across the galaxy, every scarred human became a node in a network of consciousness that dwarfed any technology ever created. Danny Clark stood in the center of the Defiance's main deck, surrounded by crystalline structures that the Keth Mori had grown specifically to amplify human neural patterns. As the network activated, he felt the weight of every human mind linking to his own. Through Maria Santos, he could sense the structural integrity of reality itself, feeling where the void entities had weakened the barriers between dimensions. Through Kevin Torres, he experienced the tactical situation across dozens of battlefronts at the same time. Through Rebecca Stone, he perceived the flow of space-time as navigable terrain. "Network is stable," reported Dr. Grant, monitoring the process from her science station. "Neural coherence at 97% and holding." Admiral Carter watched the tactical display as the void entities began their final push. The breach points were expanding rapidly, and shadow forms of impossible size were beginning to emerge. "They know what we are trying to do. They are accelerating the summoning." "Then we accelerate too," Danny said. His voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate with every scar in the fleet. "Everyone focus on your victories. Remember not just the battles you have won, but the moments when you refuse to accept defeat." The network blazed to life. Across the galaxy, humans began modifying the breach points. Their combined will reshaped the summoning circle with precision that defied physics. Each modification was guided by genetic memories of techniques used in the original Void War, but enhanced by 3 million years of human innovation and determination. The void entities realized what was happening and launched desperate attacks on the human positions. But for every human that fell, their scars passed their role in the network to others nearby. The pattern held strengthened by the sacrifice of those who refused to let their deaths break the chain. "Modifications at 60% completion," Maria reported. Her voice was strained with effort, but the focusing requirements are increasing exponentially. Danny felt the pressure building in his mind as more and more of the network's power flowed through him. His climbing scars burned like fire, but also filled him with memories of every summit he had ever reached, and every impossible ascent he had completed. Through sheer determination. "Can handle more," he said through gritted teeth. "Pour it all through me if you have to." Danny, the human brain was not designed to channel this much energy, Dr. Grant warned. "You are already operating beyond theoretical limits." "Then I guess we will find out what is beyond theoretical," Danny replied, opening himself completely to the network's flow. The modifications reached completion, just as the largest void entity began emerging from the central breach. It was a being so vast that its presence began unraveling local space-time, but instead of entering humanity's dimension, it found itself pulled through a modified gateway that led not to reality, but to a space between spaces where even entropy could not exist. One by one, the void entities were dragged through the redirected gateways. Their forms dissolved as they were banished not just from reality, but from the possibility of ever affecting reality again. The galaxy-spanning summoning circle collapsed inward. The breaches sealed themselves as space-time reasserted its natural state. The crisis was over. Danny Clark collapsed on the deck of the Defiance. His consciousness scattered across dimensions. For a moment it seemed the focusing process had burned out his mind entirely, but then his eyes opened, and when he spoke, his voice carried the harmonics of every human who had ever lived. "We did it," he said simply. "We climbed high enough." The scars on his hands had changed. No longer just records of past victories, but living symbols of humanity's greatest triumph. Similar transformations occurred across the human population. Their scars now served as permanent protection against entropy forces, a biological immune system that would prevent the void from ever again threatening their reality. In the months that followed, as the galaxy recovered from the crisis, humanity's role in the galactic community was forever changed. No longer the newest members, struggling to find their place, they had proven themselves the inheritors of a legacy that predated most known civilizations. Jake Morrison stood once again before the Heritage Council, but this time as humanity's representative rather than a supplicant seeking answers. His facial scar had evolved into an intricate pattern that seemed to shift and flow with his emotions. Every scar told a story. Every story was a victory, and every victory was a promise that no matter what threatened, the galaxy humanity would stand Against it, with the accumulated wisdom of 3 million years and the unbreakable will of those who refuse to accept defeat.